I hope you're doing well. In the last lesson, we saw that the Lord had rebuked Israel and called them a stiff-necked people. He hadn't forsaken his covenant to them. He told them that he was going to fight for them. He was going to remove their enemies, but he wouldn't go with them. Because he may consume them because of their persistent rebellion. So let's pick up here in verse 7, because the result of that was the people were astonished. They called these disastrous words. They knew they needed the presence of God. They just weren't willing to submit themselves to his authority, to forsake the mindset of the slave and to live as a beloved son, knowing that the Father desires only which is his best. So in verse 7, it says, now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all of the people would rise up and would stand at their tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. And when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent. And the Lord would speak with Moses. Excuse me. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his tent door. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again into the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent. So even though the Lord had called them stiff-necked people, which was true, that he would not go with them, but would send an angel, we see here that the tent, the tabernacle, is set up. But it's not set up in the midst of the camp, but far off. Interestingly, it was set far off because there was a separation from the sinful, self-willed people of Israel and the God who had called them out of slavery and delivered them. I love to see that those who sought the Lord still had access to the tent. They could go. Excuse me. And when they saw the pillar of the cloud would still descend upon the tent to meet with Moses, they worshiped. What does it mean to worship? They worshiped in their own tent, but to worship means to bow down. It really has the significance of submitting ourselves and recognizing that he is God and we bow down in submission to him. All of Israel's problems up to this point was they would give acts of worship, but they didn't worship with their heart, their soul, their mind. They still were living self-willed and self-directed lives. And so we see that Moses had this intimate fellowship with God. He spoke with the Father as a friend, as friends speak to one another. and then he would leave, but Joshua, his servant, would stay in the tent. Now, I want you to take away a few things here. That in this old covenant, because of their continuing issues and battles with sin and rebellion, they were unable to experience the intimacy with God the Father that he desired to have with them. They didn't have that same relationship, and the sin was causing a great separation. Moses experienced what it was to talk with God as a friend. Do you realize that because Jesus came and completely dealt with the issue of our sin, that the tabernacle is no longer far from us, and the tabernacle is no longer separating us in a sinful state from God? But we are that tabernacle. We are that temple, that God lives in us, and he desires to speak to us as friends. Jesus told his own disciples as he's preparing to go to the cross, "You are my friends. I tell you my will. I share with you the heart of God." You see, that is the beauty of being in this new covenant relationship with Abba. And I hope that you're taking advantage of that opportunity to realize that your sin doesn't separate you from him, because he dealt with your sin. He paid the full price of your sin so that he could live in you. But why does he live in you, friend? So that you can commune with him as one friend to another, that he can speak into you what is his will, what he desires to do in you and through you, and that you can live out true worship by bowing down in submission to what he desires. Not my will, yours. So Lord, what do you want to do here? And how do you want to give through me here? And what do you want to speak through me? One friend to another. For the pillar of cloud, the presence of God that will come down on the tent of meeting, is no longer distant. It's in you and me, who have received the gift of life through the finished work of the cross. I don't want you to get lost in knowing one doctrine over another. Sure, doctrine has its place, but God invites you into a deep knowing of intimacy, not just the knowledge of facts, but speaking to him as one friend to another. Enjoy that great privilege, for it's yours in Christ. I love you, and I hope you have a great day.